Hi again, everyone. I'm Steve Jones, along with the publisher of Blue White Illustrated, Phil Gross. It is great to have you with us. And Phil, great to be with you once again.
It's always good to do the show.
All right, here we go. Let's get rolling. Let's talk about Purdue. Not a work of art, but they at 6-1, you are still allowed to be in the gallery, Phil.
That's true. And I like the fact that on one drive in the first quarter, Bolden was able to take them into a touchdown. And I thought the defense played extremely well in the fourth quarter when the game was on the line.
Well, again, that's the third time this year they've been put in a position where in a final drive situation, they've looked at a team and said, you're just not going to go anywhere. Yeah, that's a plus.
They seem to dominate defensively, and that's really a big key for this football team so far.
And then let's get to Silas Redd, Phil. That's 3 consecutive 100-yard rushing games for Silas Redd. Penn State is 49-3 in their last 52 games, in which they have a guy go over 100, and they're 5-0 with Redd.
And maybe, I guess it was his coming out party, Steve, last year for Redd against Northwestern. So if he can dial up another 100-yard game, might bode well for this football game.
And he eats up a lot of time on the clock, no question about it. All right, they avoided a letdown along the way, and now they have an opportunity as Joe Paterno goes to Northwestern, chasing history again. As you can see on the all-time list, Joe Paterno right there, right behind Eddie Robinson, 408 wins. Ironically, this is the field where he tied Bear Bryant's record, and now a chance to tie Eddie Robinson on the all-time list, Phil.
Amazing. You know, he's thinking about a fact that he could possibly end this season with over 410 wins.
Amazing indeed. Now for Joe Paterno, along the way, he has had 1 or 2 chance meetings with the great Eddie Robinson of Grambling, and he discussed those experiences.
He was a delightful person and obviously did a fantastic job at Grambling. When you think if he started, I think he was 24 years old when he was a head coach. And he was really a great gentleman. He and Jay Gaither really, when there was no place for the black athlete, what they did with Grambling and Florida A&M, I think, it was something special.
And before Alabama and the other Southeastern Conference schools opened the door to allow the recruitment, it was the Gramblings, the Jackson States, the Florida A&Ms that were able to get those athletes and get them eventually to the NFL.
That's why Robinson was such a high nationalized figure in college football. And then the 1970s came, and Alabama, Bear Bryant, and the SEC schools realized what the African-American athlete could mean to their football program.
When Sam Bam Cunningham scored 4 touchdowns at Legion Field in Birmingham, that changed forever the culture of the Southeastern Conference. This series between Penn State and Northwestern to this point, as you can see, while Penn State has been the team that has dominated the series, a lot of games along the way have been very, very close, Phil, very close along the way. And Joe Paterno does know that Northwestern's a team that's going to give them a fight.
They look like we have looked on different occasions in the sense that they hurt themselves, but they have done they're a very explosive football team. And when you look at them, you get the feeling, hey, these guys can beat anybody.
And, of course, you look at the series between the two teams. Penn State, again, has dominated, Phil, but the games have been close and competitive to this point.
And a lot of times, a lot of points scored on the scoreboard. And I think that may be the case, even though Penn State's doing so well defensively in this football game.
Do you see an opportunity, Phil, and we'll get a little bit more into this when we discuss the offense, but the door being open to the possibility of finally putting it all together?
No question about that. I think they have had a lot of success running the football against Northwestern in the past, and that's really kind of opened up the game. Remember last year, down 21-0, 35 successful points, and almost ended up with 500 yards of total offense against Northwestern. And last week, against Iowa, Northwestern's defense really, really struggled.
Indeed. And last year was also the year where both Silas Redd and Evan Royster went over Not just 100, but 130 yards rushing in the game.
Yeah, and like I said, it was Redd's coming out party, and the lights may be there for him to really have a real big fourth consecutive 100-yard game this weekend.
And he'll need that along the way. He's become so important to what Penn State does. Silas Redd is averaging 101 yards per game, and we'll talk more about that when we discuss the offensive block. And it's homecoming at Evanston as well. The Nittany Lions and Northwestern playing at Ryan Field, prime time, 7 o'clock. We'll come back to talk about the Nittany Lion offense and where they stand right after this.